Hey everybody, we're Pole DFS. I'm Ricky.
I'm Keaton.
And we're going to be talking about Talladega.
Yeah, I've heard it's kind of a dart throw, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are. We're gonna talk a little bit about our picks and how we may or may not know anything more than anyone else knows. So, as usual, we have a little bit of housekeeping. Our show beers this week is the Buzz City from the Unknown. I still haven't been to Unknown.
Awesome Charlotte can. It's cool Charlotte beer, Charlotte Brewery, right outside of Uptown.
I've walked by it a lot.
Yeah.
Just never make it over there. But, yeah.
Is that show beer?
That is our show beer. As usual, thank you to our viewers. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, comment. How many more things can you do? Basically, if you want
to interact with us,
with us at all.
Our
Twitter is down here, right there. But yeah, if you are here, let us know. That would be appreciated. Just a quick recap of last week. I did not have Denny Hamlin. Did you
I had an awesome week. Yeah,
had a good week.
I had a good week.
Not.
I had Hamlin. I had the second highest score in the Mini Max. It actually was the highest score in the $15, the winning lineup. I would have tied.
But he didn't have it.
And split it, but I didn't put that one in the 15. I put it in the 50 cent, of course. But there was actually one lineup I had that had sub Stenhouse for, I remember who he subbed in. And that was the difference. It was like a 17th place finish versus a 14th place finish or something like that.
But I think the thing that's good to note from last week, even though I did not do well, because apparently I'm not the best at putting my guys into actual lineups. But the our predictions and the people that we pumped up, I thought did very well.
I built my pool using our stuff.
I did not have them in the right order, and I just didn't have any Hamlin. We talked a little bit about how when you're building smaller amount of lineups like me, where I built 20, you kind of have to make choices and you have to pick who your gunners are going to be. And I did not pick Hamlin, and that bit me.
Luckily, I cut Harvick and I cut a fair amount of Keselowski. I cut someone else as well.
I'm going to keep putting Kevin Harvick in a lineup until the Stewart Haas cars are better again.
I'm not sure that I'm going to play anyone except for Amarola from Stewart Haas Racing. So
we'll see. But also, congrats to Alex Bowman.
Yeah, awesome seeing him.
It was awesome end of the race. I enjoyed that part. I also had some of Bowman, but it just didn't really matter. I think he was probably the reason why I didn't lose all of my money.
I didn't include him in my Dominator pool, which I think was right because he didn't dominate. He just snuck in at the end.
Denny dominated, basically.
But all my 3 Dominators didn't do well. It was really a 2-Dominator race with Bowman as the third highest.
Yeah, with the way that Denny just absolutely destroyed everyone, it's not that super surprise. As usual, we are jumping in. This is going to be a weird week, but the points are the same, even if they're probably going to be scored a little bit differently. As usual, you have lap base, you have finish base, you have lap sled, fastest lap. You get points for that. Then you get points based on your finish and your place differential from where you start to where you finish.
Yep.
So as we look at lap sled, 188 laps, so way less than last week when we had 400. We had 400.
So a lot less.
We said 500. But we were corrected.
We get called out and corrected. It was 400 last week.
But this week I checked 3 times, and it's 188. And but if you look at it, the average laps, if you look at last race, the amount of laps led just isn't going to be the huge. It may be the decider between first and 10th, and first and the top and the very top, but it's not going to be the difference between
a winning lineup and a losing lineup.
Exactly. A cashing out lineup and an out cashing out lineup. And not only that, but
it's a disparity.
It's also going to be really hard to predict.
Yeah. It's spread out.
I think this is going to be your hardest week to predict because it's not going to be where what we've had the past few weeks where 2 or 3 people are going to probably lead 100 laps apiece and maybe somebody sneaks in some more. But, if you look at, the fall race, there's 3 people that led at least 20 laps, and, Logano led the most, but he crashed, so
he wouldn't have even been useful. Lineup,
yeah. Chase led a lot, but finished 5th, so probably did well, but not as well. But then
my boy Denny.
Yeah, the person who literally won the race only led 26 laps. So, but if you look at the average laps led at the super speedways since 2018, it's also a smattering, and kind of what I was talking about before. It's going to be really hard to predict who that's going to be, and it's not going to be as big of a difference this week as in past weeks. I think it's still important that you get guys that you think can lead, but I mean, if you look at it, and I mean, the guys that are on the top right here are guys that are traditionally really, really good.
Yeah, it's our guys.
At super speedway races, one person that jumps out that we'll talk a little bit later is somebody like Ricky Stenhouse, who is basically a wrecker, finishes up front at super speedway races every race. Okay. But like he's a really good super speedway racer, and he's somebody who has outperformed where he finishes on a normal week, even though he's actually been running really well this year as a whole. I in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, and he was in my second place lineup last week.
But beyond that, I mean, you look at the lap leaders, and they're not that different of a group of people, right? Yeah. It's just that there's no one that's leading 100 laps and putting you in a position where you have to play them. Yeah. And not only that, but we'll talk later. Most of these people up here are starting in the top 5 or top 10, and so if you're wanting to field these guys on your team, you're leaving position differentials on the board, and this is a race where not everyone in the back is going to finish in the front and vice versa, but there's going to be multiple people who start 30th,
and you're going to need those
who are going to finish in the top 10, and it's either going to just straight offset, picking the right gunner, or you're going to need them in combination. And so, it doesn't really work, I don't believe, in this week to just kind of pack people towards the front like it may in some weeks where, like, yeah, he's starting 8th and he doesn't have a position differential side, but, like, he's going to finish in the top 10. Like, exactly. We've had it multiple weeks where, like, there are crashes, there are failures, there are, sometimes you just don't run as well. But for the most part, like, a given car is probably going to finish top 10, right? Yeah. And so it's similar here in that, like, a car may be top 10 equipment, but there's so many variables that happen that it's a lot harder to rely on that. And not only that, but when you're building lineups, it's a lot easier to mess that up.
And that's something I've had trouble as Ricky and I have been like talking through lineups. Yeah. I'm like telling him my ideas, and he's like, I don't think you're listening to me about this track. Like, that's just not how super speedways work. Yeah. Because in my mind, I still have the traditional, get my 2 dominators, get my other 4, maybe my 3 dominators. And it sounds like a super speedway, and I'm a new race fan, so, this is all new to me, and I'm excited. All I've seen, is Daytona at the beginning of the year. And, like the random one-off races as like a fan at the bar. But so this is new to me, but I am excited to see how this differs from DFS build, and I will be interested to watch the lineups this week. And I probably will play less because it does seem like it's a little bit higher variance.
Yeah. And that's something that'll be good too. So like if you're watching, make sure to comment what your approach to it is, because I think this is a week where, because the variance is higher, because it's a little bit harder to know, that there's probably are multiple approaches that are going to be successful, as opposed to like, some weeks we've talked about, like, yeah, you could probably do a 2-gunner with like a 3rd quasi or like a 3-gunner build, but like it has to basically be one of those two, right? Yeah. I think this is a week where you're going to see, if you want to do more of like a traditional like gunner build, like a 2-gunner build, you can, but you're going to need those 2 gunners to do really, really well. You need them to finish up front, and you need them not to wreck, or
which feels a lot riskier if you're doing like a heavy, 30% for this gunner type.
Exactly. And just following on a little bit more about why the gunner isn't going to be as important this week is the fastest lap side, the way the draft works, and the way that some car on any given lap, one lane may have the momentum, and who's going to be the fastest lap. There's not really a dichotomy of, one person's going to have the fastest lap 30, 40, 50 times. No one's getting out front and just literally in the fall race, there was 2 drivers that had more than 10 fastest laps, and no one had more than 12. Like,
what about laps led? We're going to get to that.
And laps led, we talked about laps led a minute ago, but like if you look at that, like you have 45, 41, 26. So I mean there's definitely more point potential, but with 0.25 points per lap led, you're not really getting all that much for, you're getting, what's that?
You don't have Hamlin leading 180 laps or whatever.
Like 40 laps would be 10 points. And that's
that would
probably
be a lot. That's more than we saw in some of these other. Has anyone led, right?
What? No,
Wasn't that the most?
No, 45.
Oh, I was looking down
look
here
at the slides.
I was looking at the average, not the full race. Gotcha.
But yeah, so the average are a little bit depressed because obviously the way the dynamics go, like not everyone's going to lead the same. Not laps, but like this is a snapshot of last race.
So
like
45 and 41.
45, 41, 26. And sometimes there is the potential that maybe one person could lead longer, and if they do, you probably are going to need to have them because they're going to eat up a bunch of points. But that's probably not going to happen as we go forward.
And the reason for that is like the more parity between the cars in this type of restrictor plate
racing.
Okay.
Exactly. And so you're going to have the way the runs happen and with the length of the track, there's going to be a lot more passes, there's going to be a lot more lead changes, and that's just a byproduct of the type of racing, and that really comes to fruition in the fastest lap side where like you're not going to have on any given lap, any of the 40 cars could be the fastest one, as opposed to like at a mile and a half where like there's like 3 cars that could, and so and not only that, but because so few, on any given, like I said, 12 laps was the most fastest laps last race, and that's what like 5.5 points, something like that. And so when you're looking at that, 5.5 points, it's good to have 5.5 points, and you want the person that has 12, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, it's not that big of a difference, and
it's a few finishing places.
Yeah, and it's not better to have that person if like say Denny Hamlin for example, right? Like it's not better to have Denny Hamlin who's starting first than like Chase Elliott who's starting 5th or 8th. No, he's starting 8th.
Okay.
And so like
extra place differential.
If they have similar races and they finish back to back, even if Denny is fastest lap for those 12 to 15 laps,
a little bit of place differential offsets it.
It offsets it. And so this is a week where I think you lean a lot more into position differential and also your finishing position. I mean, there is that aspect of it, and we'll talk a little bit later. I've been trying to hone in a little bit more on how to predict where people are going to finish with the randomness of it. So week to week, I've been pumping like average finish, for example, where like I've used average finish a lot, and I still use it here, and we'll talk about it. But when you look at the average finish, they're all like 12th to 20th. Like if you look at everyone's average finish,
because of a random crash,
exactly,
the average down.
Exactly,
Okay.
And so we'll walk through and we'll look at wins, we'll look at top 5s, we'll look at top 10s. I don't think wins really mean that much difference between a top 5. I mean, I think a top 5 or top 10 are better indicators, but I just thought it was cool to include it, and I was already making
wins a win,
But but anyways, you'll see like we're trying to gather who is able to rise up, and if you're able to, there's been I believe 13 races. I've been looking since like the first race of 2018. So to give us a decent amount of sample size, and there's been 13 super speedway races, and in those 13 races, I think the most top 10s is Denny Hamlin at 9. And so
that's pretty consistent.
And it is very consistent, and that's the thing. Like somebody like him is very consistent, but it drops off very quickly after that. But anyways, as we look at finishing
where he
position,
got wrecked, do you know?
I mean, I'm sure, or he just got drawn out. I don't know which 4 were off the top of my head, but
as a fan of racing, are these your favorite tracks to watch? It's
a lot of fun. I think it's more fun to watch in general. I don't think it's full circle back. I was a huge Junior fan. He was really good at super speedways, so I was always a big fan. But that being said, I think like as a fan of like a specific driver, it's hit or miss, right? Like if your driver's doing well, then it's awesome. But if your driver like gets caught up in the first wreck, then it sucks.
Okay.
And there's more of a chance that your driver gets caught up in the first wreck. Like the Daytona 500, for example, right?
First wreck.
Alex Bowman was in that first wreck on like lap 15, and then they had like a 7-hour rain delay. or a
It was
day
just
ran
boring
delay
to
or
watch,
whatever.
yeah.
And like, the rest of the race was like fine to watch, but like the person that I was pulling for was out. But one thing I did indicate here was, people that watch our golf and people that watch our NASCAR, I think this is a little bit closer to like a golf week where like, yeah, it's important on where they finish, but just a big part of it is going to just be getting all of your drivers to the end of the race.
Step 1, get 6 of 6.
And I don't think it's as easy in like as in golf to like predict who that's going to be.
Yeah.
But that being said, like that's going to give you the best potential to have a lineup that's successful is if you get all of your guys through. And
are there guys that like have a reputation for staying clean on a track where it gets messy, or
there's guys that have a reputation for wrecking a lot?
Well, yeah. See, who's the opposite of that? What's the? Is there
Danny's a perfect example, right? Like,
he's done
but
well,
that's what I was talking about when we look at top 10s and top 5s, because the people who are able to finish consistently towards the top or more than normal
have avoided
have at least shown that on multiple times, because it's hard to avoid these wrecks. It's hard to do that. And so that's what...
Tropical Thunder.
Exactly.
Is that the movie?
It's Days of Thunder.
Days of Thunder, damn.
Tropic Thunder, great movie. Not in any way
Days of Thunder
related.
is the new NASCAR movie I just watched.
It's also
I highly suggest it.
The new NASCAR movie from 1992.
Very new Tom Cruise movie, Days of Thunder. Highly recommend.
Anyways, so again, position differential I think is going to be really big this week. As I think it's important to get people who are going to finish in the front, but because it's a lot harder to guess who the people that are going to finish in the front is, and as we get a little bit further along, we'll see, like the Daytona 500 where Michael McDowell won, this is a time where cars that, often start towards further back and are lower funded are able to run up front and are able to finish very well. And Michael McDowell is somebody who, everyone was very surprised when he won the Daytona 500, which it was very surprising. But we'll see here in a minute. Like, he's a good restrictor plate racer. I think he has 3 top 5s since 2018 at super speedway races. He's shown that he has been very good. And there was a reason why he won the race. He was running third, before the wreck happened, right? And so, it's important to look at that, and he's somebody who's starting in the 20th. I think he's going to be high owned because of that. So we'll try to kind of pick out some other people who we might think maybe be able to do well, but and we'll go from there. And
so real quick, since I'm pretty new to racing,
no
it says bigger deal down this week with cars being more equal thanks to the draft. What does that mean? I hear dirty air and clean air thrown around. So does that have to do with this draft?
So the because the way the air flows, being close to a car, you don't have to, when you're following somebody, it doesn't, you don't have to press the gas as much, so the motor doesn't matter as much, right? And so cars that are maybe not necessarily as high power, aren't as strong, don't have they aren't falling back because they're pulling with somebody or they're having somebody push them, and so the cars stay really close to each other. And that, when cars are close to each other, it gives you opportunities to move around and, change lanes and that type of thing, where it's more based on just where you are. It's not necessarily driver ability. I mean, there is the driver ability aspect to it, but it's a lot of like being in the right time at the right place. That flip those two around. Right place at the right time. And, all of that matters a lot more here than it would at Atlanta.
So despite it being a bigger track, 2.5 miles, our drivers will be more bunched together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so that's something I still haven't been able, I guess, to reconcile in my head, is that I was thinking 2.5 miles, we would have people more spread out. It would be a more boring race because we wouldn't see...
No, the way that with the restrictor plate and the way that it bunches them together, there's a high end, and then because you're going so fast and it's so big and you're basically never letting off, the aerodynamic aspect is so much more important than the...
So the bunching is a strategy more so than just an effect. I mean, you're doing it on purpose to gain speed.
I mean,
everyone's bunching to gain speed. Or because you have to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is there going to be a lone wolf running in the back, or...
If you do, you're going so much slower that you can't keep up.
Okay. So you'll end up getting lapped, and then you're behind the pack, and then you're back in the pack? Okay.
And I mean, you'll see, like, you know, a lot of times early in the race, you know, if a certain car is, you know, especially like a front runner car. Denny Hamlin does this a lot. Harvick does it quite a bit as well. If he kind of gets in a position where he's not, like, right at the front, and he doesn't really like being in the middle of the pack because the race is so tight, and that leads to wrecks, like, you know, if you get a few cars work together, you know, the spotter signals to other spotters, that type of thing. Okay. You know, 3 or 4 cars might go to the back and just drive in a line, you know, half a straightaway, or not half a straightaway, probably half a straightaway. You know, a corner behind the rest of the pack. Okay. Just ride, because it's 188 laps. And, you know, obviously we said, oh, that's less laps than normal, but it's two and 3/4 miles. So, or 2 2/3 miles. There we go. 2.66 miles. And so, you know, it's a long race, and the way the strategy plays out, a lot of times those cars will wait towards the end. And that's, again, why it makes it harder to pick who's going to be in the lead, right? Like, Denny Hamlin may be running third, and then, you know, the lane that he's not in may get speed, and he just kind of gets into a point where he just doesn't want to be there anymore, and he'll just jump out of line and go to the back and hang out. And then he may be decently fast, so he may get some fastest lap, depending on how many cars are back there. But he's never going to lead laps back there. Okay. And, you know, that may be the first half of the race or the first stage.
So will there be a faster lane or a slower lane, or will that really change throughout the?
Yeah, it's super dynamic.
Okay. So it's not just based on how the track's kind of like running.
It has a lot to do with the cars that are in it. So that's where, like, how good your car and stuff becomes, right? Okay. How good of how much power you have can push lanes, but the way the momentum works, they always end up coming back to each other for the most part.
I'm really interested to see how this race is going to
run. Jumping first, I wanted to talk about Joey Gase, because he's doing something really, really cool. So he normally drives the 52, 51, 50 something, 51 for Rick Ware Racing. But this weekend he is driving the 28. And for NASCAR fans, know this is the Davey Allison paint scheme that he drove.
Who's Davey Allison?
Davey Allison. So he died in a helicopter crash at Talladega in 94?
On the way to the race, or?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and so, but the cool thing about this is, and so was Joey Gase, was that Davey Allison was an organ donor. Okay. And so there's a really cool, I think it's on Fox Sports, documentary about all the people that were helped by Davey Allison's organ donor donation. And registerme.org is on Joey Gase's car. As I said, his mom was an organ donor. I think it said his mom's donation helped like 66 different people. Wow. After she passed away. So it's really cool. So he changed the number to the 28.
And that's what Davey Allison's car was?
Exactly. And so a really cool thing that they're doing, he's driving it in Xfinity and Cup, the 28 with the paint scheme. So something I wanted to highlight because I thought was really cool, and we normally don't talk about the Rick Ware Racing cars. So we probably won't too much the rest of the day. But as we move to Talladega,
all right, how far from Atlanta? I like it.
It's 100 miles west.
I like it. It's 100 miles from Charlotte.
100 what?
How many miles from Charlotte?
350.
Another couple 200 and change. Okay.
It's not actually in Talladega. That's what I learned during my research today.
Is it a suburb?
It's just outside. Yeah, Talladega is also small, so I don't know if it's a suburb, but apparently Talladega is bigger than Lincoln, Alabama.
All right.
So 2.66 miles. Some might say 2/3.
2 and 2/3,
give or take. Interesting thing about it is the start-finish line is almost into turn 1, so you can see if you're looking at this picture right here, it's after the end of pit road. Okay. And so sometimes that can actually be really interesting because at the end of the race you have to run through the tri-oval. The start-finish line normally would be in the middle of the tri-oval. So a lot can happen between where a traditional start-finish line would be, like at a Daytona, and here. Okay. Also a lot of wrecks. But yeah, so that's something interesting to watch, and a little bit different differentiator from other tracks.
Nice.
That you
and
that you don't quite see.
Super Speedway.
Exactly. But my verdict on this for picking is to flip a coin or draw a name out of a hat.
Ricky wanted us to draw names out of a hat on the show, but I did not set up in time.
That's all I wanted to do. But instead, I made a PowerPoint. Yeah, and so my strategy is what I just said on the last page. No, I'm just kidding. Or am I?
See what we said before.
Yeah. But no, so I'm definitely going to focus more on position differential. It's a little bit weird this week because we talked about with no qualifying, the traditionally good cars are all up at the front.
Yep.
And so you don't really have a lot of like obvious choices towards the back that have that position differential. There are some, and we'll talk about those as we go. But, there's not as many as normal. And so I think it's really going to come down to just finding a needle in a haystack. But I know that the good cars are still good, but it's just not as big of a gap. So, the cars that are good, the Hendrick cars, the Penske cars, the cars that have been good all year are going to continue to be good.
Yep.
And they're going to continue to do well, and they're probably going to be better than some of the other cars. But with the way that the races play out, that just gives opportunities for these lower funded teams or these smaller teams to creep up into the top 10. And if you start 30th,
There's 20 place
you
differential
need to have them in your lineup.
Yeah.
So that's just something that we'll try to keep an eye on as we go through. And that's something that I've tried to highlight more as we go through than most weeks. Favorites to win, I would not bet.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. I feel like betting this is, especially at those odds, 9-1, 10-1, 11-1. I mean,
unless you just wanted to bet on Denny Hamlin because he's real. He's just been. Of course, I would bet him to finish second.
Yeah, or bet him to lead all the laps and not win the race.
I thought it was interesting that he is a 13-2 favorite.
And he's starting first, which is the pole has not been a spot. This season's been different in DFS, but at least from what I understand, traditionally has not been a spot you want to play in DFS. So.
Yeah, and especially with the position differential being so important this week as opposed to other weeks that we talked about. But I don't have strong feelings about this. I put the favorites here.
If you're betting this week, if it's truly a crap show, you're better off taking one of the longer odd guys.
Yeah.
I don't know about Michael McDowell, the 6-6-1.
To
nice.
repeat.
Yeah, is there
not
else
repeat, but he
in a similar skill caliber and similar price range? I'd probably be willing to throw a dart at them.
But it's really throwing darts.
Throw a dart at Joe Cobb to come off the sideline and win the race.
JJ Yeley, your replacement, probably could.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Or Hoff.
But like I said, so we're going to do a little bit different this week in that we're going to look at, wins, top 5s, top 10s before we jump into the, average finish side. Because the average finish side doesn't give you as much. Super Speedway. So it's Daytona and Talladega.
Yep.
So I think it's been 13 races was the number of races in it. So as you see, Denny Hamlin has won 3, and I think they're all Daytona 500s. If I'm not mistaken.
King of Daytona, I guess.
Yeah, I like I said, I don't think there's anything that you can really glean too much from the win side, but we'll get to it as we get into. If you just like the idea that somebody knows how to win, which I don't think is a real fact, but somebody like Eric Almirola actually does jump out to me because he's somebody who he has a win, and also he should have won the race that Austin Dillon won because he got wrecked. Good for Austin Dillon, but he 100% just wrecked him on the backstretch. And so, it's definitely the idea of, these are guys that, maybe a little bit better than in traditional weeks. Though I pump on Eric Almirola every week, so I guess that's not really true.
He was in my lineup last week, my winning lineup.
Justin Haley jumps out here, and he jumps out across the board, not just because he has a win. He's had multiple top 10s.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that when you were telling me that.
I think he's gonna be pretty high on, but if he performs, the Spire cars aren't that good, but they're not bad.
And we just talked about how cars are more even.
Yeah. I don't know. moving to top fives.
And I think this is where you start to get a little less noise and a little more signal.
Exactly.
Right? I think you get a lot of noise in the win column.
Oh, 100%.
Top 5 and top 10, you get less.
That's why I said I included it. I mean, you're seeing similar drivers, right? Like Eric Jones had a win. William Byron had a win. Michael McDowell had a win.
Leader in both categories.
And so you get similar people, but I think this is probably more significant in actually helping. But
the random 1-1-1s aren't there, right?
I think Eric Jones is somebody that's interesting to me because obviously we've talked a lot about, or I've talked a lot and had to apologize to him a lot about the move from Gibbs to Petty.
Yep.
And obviously the 43 car is not the same caliber that the 20 car he drove last year was. And so, I mean, I do think there's the aspect of some of his performance at super speedways has been thanks to, because again, like we said before, just because it's super speedway doesn't mean that the best cars don't run up front. The best cars still continue to run up front.
Yep.
It's just a smaller edge to where sometimes it's different. And so, but Eric Jones has shown that he's been able to run really well, and the 43's actually done pretty well. Bubba's on some of these slides from when he drove the 43 as well, and so we'll talk a little bit more. But I think he's somebody. Eric Jones starting 22nd. He's priced a little bit higher than he has been some weeks, probably partially due to that. But even at 7,500, I think he's somebody who is definitely an attractive play. Moving down, I also like Buescher a lot. The Roush Fenway cars have ran really well at Super Speedway tracks. So Buescher and Ryan Newman, and they're both cheap and starting pretty far back. Newman's a little bit more expensive, but he's starting like 28th, and so we'll see he pops off in the statistics. But those are definitely people that pop out for me more than just the normal. And the rest of the guys are the normal guys, right? Denny, Chase, Logano, Harvick, Byron, who's just killed it. He's done even better this year than he has in past years. And so, honestly, Byron at 8,000 is somebody that, like, if you want to go for that gunner up front, I would rather have somebody like Byron or Chase, who's starting 8th, who has a little bit more position differential, than somebody like Denny. Yeah. Even though, there's a good shot. Not a good shot, but, like, probably Denny is the favorite for a reason. Like, there's probably a higher percentage of him winning than any other individual driver. But with, at that price tag for Willie B, it's pretty cheap. I mean, he doesn't have that position differential, and so he's definitely not going to be in a lot of my lineups, but I think I'll definitely have a few where he's involved.
Yeah, if he pops off and finishes top 5.
But I really do like Chase here starting 8th because I think he does provide at least a decent amount of position differential upside.
As well as win equity for being
100%. And as we move to top 10s, very similar. Some other people that pop out, though, that jumped in here. Again, Newman, who I just said. Newman doesn't finish top 5, though. In all fairness, we say he doesn't finish top 5. Like the race that he almost died in, he was running second when he flipped over and whatnot. So like he's had some not so great luck.
Those are the kind of things I don't want to see as a new NASCAR fan.
Yeah, that was intense. But he apparently keeps the car in his garage now.
Oof.
Interesting fact. Nonetheless, but he's somebody who has
the
been
wrangled mess. I mean, how it had to be destroyed,
it's pretty
right?
bad. I'll show you afterwards. But no, he is somebody who has, consistently 8 out of 13 races finished in the top 10. I mean, that's as good a statistically, like maybe if you want to be go against the stats, maybe even say that that's too many times finishing, in the top 10.
Well, it almost speaks to the type of car he's in, right? It says if he's driving lower end equipment to top 10s consistently, that speaks to being a good driver in mediocre equipment, right? I mean,
I'm not sure I would call Roush Fenway Racing lower end.
I said mediocre.
And so, but like again, I think it goes to show that some people are just naturally better super speedway racers.
Okay.
But yeah, again,
like Keelan Harvick.
I mean, maybe one day. once he gets a little bit older.
Once he can legally drive iRacer.
Yeah. But as you walk down, I mean, Amarola again pops off here, right? All the way up to third most on top tens. Bowman, who we just talked about, and he's also a guy that's had some bad luck. But the Hendrick cars have been traditionally strong at super speedway races, especially pure speed. It hasn't always transitioned into the race side, but they've won the pole for 5. They've been on the front row at 5 Daytona 500s in a row or something like that. Something stupid. Anyways, which isn't
relevant this season. Yeah.
Nonetheless, it was a Daytona, but not.
Well, they did qualifying at Daytona this year.
They did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But again, you see Buescher. And then the other person that pops out that, isn't traditionally here is Corey LaJoie.
Oh, my
somebody
boy.
who I'm going to be playing a crap ton of this
Where's
week.
Suarez this week?
Suarez, he's starting a little bit higher, but I'm still playing quite a bit
of
of
my other boys.
And that I think that's the thing that we've started running into, which is good and bad, right? Is that a lot of times we're trumpeting the same people week to week. And that goes to show that either A, we're dumb, or B,
leave your comment below.
Leave your comment below if you think we're dumb. But it means that we're seeing these drivers consistently outperform, where they're starting or where they're finishing. Well, Corey LaJoie is the perfect example of somebody who I think has been running. He's outperforming both his equipment and also his results haven't actually reflected where he's ran 2 weeks ago at Martinsville.
If there were traditional qualifying, a lot of this starting position would be different, and DFS, I guess, would be a lot different because of
it would
starting.
be, and it would be really interesting to see how to approach it, because the thing about super speedway race, or the thing about super speedway qualifying, because it's single car, it ends up being a lot different than how the race actually goes.
Single car meaning there's only one car on the track when they qualify?
Exactly.
Okay.
And so you're getting, you're going to get a lot more differential in that regard. But yeah, I think this is probably more difficult to figure out how to approach it, because again, the top teams are all at the top.
Yep. And they're all starting at the top. Yeah,
that's what I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
They're all at the top of the starting.
I think they're going to run at the top, but yeah, that too.
And so, it's definitely a difficult thing to do, and that's why I've wrung my hair 100 times during this, trying to pull my hair out. And
leave your comments below.
Yeah,
let us know.
Trying to figure out what's going on, but I think it'll definitely be interesting to see how that ends up happening. But we'll walk through our picks and that type of thing on how we've approached it based on where they're starting now and where they're going to hopefully finish. But if you look at, so this is the average finish that I normally do. But if you look at the average finish, it's literally 14th, 15th, 18th, 19th, 17th, 19th. And if you go through it, literally, I went through and it was literally I don't think no one was below, no one had a higher average finish than 10th.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
And so,
which we don't see normally. I mean, we see some guys that
are
normally top 5 pretty consistently.
Yeah. There was a few weeks where, Martin Truex and Kyle Busch had, 3.5s.
Yeah.
And so, but again, the average finish probably isn't the best indicator this week, because the average finish is you wrecked not always, but you may have wrecked half the time, you may have finished half the time. But
first and a 26 averages to 13.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that being said, as you look at this, you see 6 people, and this is not value based. So this is literally just raw points, okay. and it's position guys, and it's people that's $5,000 and $6,000.
It's all position
and
guys.
I don't know what to do with it.
I mean, these are the guys you want to fill out your roster with. I think. I mean, these guys should probably all be in your pool.
And not only that, but I think the good part of this is that I think it makes building lineups both harder and easier, I guess. I don't think you're ever going to, this week, with the way that the starting lineups are and the way the pricing is, I don't think you're ever going to, really run into that much, I just can't afford that person.
Okay.
I don't see
because
it
you
personally.
can go down to these 5s and 6s guys.
Yeah, and you almost have to with how far back they're starting versus the people that, and you'll see as we walk through, like the guys towards the top are the expensive, like the guys starting towards the front are the expensive people, and so.
And all your place differential picks are in the low price tier. I mean,
and not only that, but like you look at somebody like Justin Haley, who again, I don't want to put too much stock into this because like he has that fluky win, and he's had some other he's had some good runs. He's ran well in Busch, but like I'm not saying he's going to finish 10th, but starting 34th and only $5,900, like he doesn't have to do that much.
No. And if he does do a 10th or better, you 100% have to have him.
Yeah, and not only that, but like once you get him, like let's say you build a lineup with him and LaJoie, like you could basically fill the rest of your lineup with anybody you want.
Yeah, get all the expensive dudes.
And so I'm probably gonna have a good amount of people on this list. For people that I like specifically, I like Newman a ton.
Yep.
I like Priest a lot. I've talked a little bit about Priest week to week. I think he normally ends up being a little bit cheaper than Stenhouse, but in the same car. And I think Stenhouse is more experienced driver, so it probably makes sense that he's more expensive. But I like the value of him a lot, and there's been a few weeks where he's really paid off, and at a super speedway, I think it could definitely pay off to have him at 6,400 starting 29th.
Yep.
I like LaJoie. Buscher's interesting because he is starting 21st, so there's a little bit more risk involved and not as much upside. But he's also a guy that I think could easily get into the top 10. It's not even like on a good day he finished 10th. Like he could easily finish top 10, top 5, and it wouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah.
It may not be the norm, but like it wouldn't be a surprise at all. And then Chase Briscoe I talk about every week. But the rest of the top 10 was interesting to me as well. Because, again, I talked about Bubba, who is now in this, Gibbs satellite team. And so, maybe a little bit more power, maybe a little bit better. But he's also shown that he's been good at sugar plate races before. So,
in the 43, right?
Yeah. As he moves to the 23, like maybe we're going to see, him continue to do that. And he's $7,000, and I think he's starting somewhere in the 20th. We'll see him in a minute. But just rounding out the top 10 was Michael McDowell again. Timmy Hill was an interesting one because he's starting 39.
Is he normally a truck driver, right?
I mean, he drives a lot in Cup. He drove full-time last year. He's not driving quite full-time this year, but he also drives trucks as well. He drives for himself in trucks.
Cool.
And so...
love the self-funded guy.
But he's a guy that's interesting because he's super cheap, but he's starting 39th. He's intriguing to me. I'm not sure I'm actually going to roster him. Then Almirola's there as well.
Just love Almirola.
Yeah. But again, as we look at value, it's literally the same 5 guys.
That's hilarious.
Briscoe is also 6th. Briscoe and Buscher were tied for 5th in not value, but in value.
Nice.
They weren't tied.
And McDowell evidently popped in your top 10 as well,
huh? Some interesting...
Tell me who Casagrala is.
Casgrala?
Yeah.
So Casgrala is driving for Colleague Racing. So if you think about Xfinity, Colleague is one of the top teams. AJ Allmendinger, Justin Haley drives for him. Jeb Bush. They have a 4th car.
Jeb Bush, the politician's got
Not
a team,
Jeb
huh?
Bush, Jeb Burton.
Love it.
The other Jeb.
Love Jeb Bush.
The other, yes. Lacks enthusiasm, but he knows how to get around the track. He just doesn't do it quite with enthusiasm.
Oh, Jeb Bush.
Nonetheless, Jeb Burton. But they're making the move. They're going to have a full-time team next year. But Casgrala is driving I don't know how many races they're in. 5 races? Maybe more than that. This year.
Up in Cup.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's somebody who has, he's ran mostly road courses so far. But,
has he run this season?
Yes. He ran the Daytona. No, he ran the Daytona 500.
Oh, you ran the 500 and the road course?
Yeah, and the road course.
Okay.
That sounds right. Maybe he didn't run the road course for all I remember. Anyways, he definitely ran the 500 though.
Okay.
And did pretty well. I think he finished top 20. I think he's definitely a guy that's worth rostering. I can't remember his price tag off the top of my head. I have him in my picks, and if I don't,
is he starting 39?
But he's starting 39. Yeah, because he doesn't run. Yeah. Actually, he's starting 40. No, he's starting 40. I don't know where he started.
They have that 39 spot.
We'll see in a minute. 39th is Harrison Burton, who is also. Yeah, it's fine. Nonetheless, as you look at the rest of the top 10, JJ Yaley, somebody popping who it took over for Jennifer Cocobb when NASCAR said she couldn't run. And then Bubba, Michael McDowell, Briscoe were the same that we saw before. So I walked through. So the way I did it this week, instead of just doing a straight tier system where I said, gunners, rest of the pool, I walked through by the thousand. So sub six. Sixes, sevens.
So does that mean you're not doing a traditional gunner pool this week?
I'm not.
Okay.
I will probably have some of the more expensive guys, and I'll probably have like lineups with like what you would think is a traditional gunner in it, but I'm not going to have as many. You're
not forcing 2 or 3 of in every pool.
I would be surprised if I have. I definitely won't have more than 2 of like the really expensive guys. I would be surprised if I had 2 in a lot of them, but we'll see as I make my lineups. I haven't fully done it yet. Casgirl started 38th.
Okay, so we see him.
And so, as you know,
guys
these 4 right here, I like. I mean, there's arguments for some other guys down there as well, but I like LaJoy, that we talk about every week. But he's also a guy that's shown that he can run well at super speedways. Anthony
on regular tracks,
yeah. Anthony Alfredo is somebody who I talk about a lot. The teammate of Michael McDowell. Front Row Motorsports has always run really well at super speedways. I think that's a lot of the smaller, lower funded teams, because the playing field's a lot more equal at super speedways. They put a lot of stock into making the building their super speedway cars and that type of thing. And so Front Row Motorsports is somebody who has shown that they do that. And because of that, I like Anthony Alfredo at $5,700. Again, Kaz Gralla, I think starting 38th is...
What equipment's he in?
He's in... So it's College Racing, and they are... I think they're running RCR cars this year.
Okay,
they're going to do their own next year, I believe. But I think they're running satellite cars this year. I could be wrong on that. But, I mean, that's going to be... I think that's wrong priced. He's going to be in a lot of my lineups. I mean, I think that's something that we probably want to talk about a little bit later, is how much is too much in for like of somebody, because like if they
in a race like this,
because they can wreck, right? Yeah. But he is a guy. Gralla is somebody who is probably going to hit towards the upper echelon of that, and Haley as well, I think. And again, we talked a little bit about how his stats are probably maybe a little bit misleading, because he has had some like really good fortuitous bounces.
Yeah, he's got a lot of noise in that.
But I still, at 34th and at $5,900, any of these 4, if you start a lineup with 2 of these 4, I don't think you're setting yourself back. I think you're setting yourself up really well. Where like in a normal week,
you wouldn't want
in a normal week, if you started your lineup with 2 guys under 6,000, you're like you basically need you need to have 2 to hand.
Well, what's funny is like I don't typically start my builds from the back. I typically start my builds from the front, and then who I back into at the end is sort of who I back into. But kind of thinking about this week and a little more random aspect, it almost seems like you could start your builds from the back.
And I very well might.
Yeah.
We'll see as I go through. I think one thing that's going to be harder this week, and that I'm going to try really, really hard to do, is figure out how to eliminate people from my pool, because it's not as obvious. It's not as,
especially on a random week.
Exactly. It's not a week where, like most weeks, and I've talked about this quite a bit. Like most weeks, you can cut out the bottom 10 people because they're basically never going to finish higher than 28th, probably not 30th.
Just
right?
because their equipment isn't any good.
Yeah, exactly. And so. And then you start from there, and then there's like obvious people you can cut out for various reasons,
either pricing or starting.
But like this week,
whatever,
it's a lot harder, and so I think it's definitely going to be, interesting to figure out how to approach it in a way where I don't end up with 20 lineups with 35 of the
Castrella and Corey LaJoie.
Or the opposite, right? Where like I end up with like 75% of one person, or 10 lineup, or 10 drivers where I have one lineup for them.
I mean, the nice thing about that price range is they're all pretty tight. You can pivot amongst any of those drivers pretty easily.
And so, and as we move up, there's your Suarez. And I think Suarez isn't a bad pick.
19th's a little bit
He doesn't
high.
have the position differential side, so you would definitely need him to finish top 10, which I think he definitely could. He ran, if I remember, he was running in the top 10 when he got wrecked at the Daytona 500, if I remember correctly. I may have made that up. But he's shown that he can definitely run, up front and or towards the front. And so he's definitely somebody that can. But that being said, the people that we just talked about and the people above him, I probably would want a little bit more. I would rather have Tyler Reddick at 6,500 starting one position lower, right?
Yeah.
Or Briscoe.
And I've liked starting Reddick this season. So.
Yeah. Reddick is somebody who I think similar to Grawl, he just feels kind of low. The RCR cars have been good at restrictor plate races. Reddick doesn't pop in the statistics, but he's
a good driver and a good car.
He feels like he should be more in the 7s, just to me, just based on how pricing goes. But again,
if he started 28th, he would be 7,500.
Yeah, and then he would be and then I would be pressing a big buy, right? At 20th, obviously, he has more risk in that if he wrecks, your lineup is dead because
the differential.
Yeah. But he has to finish higher. I think he's definitely an option. I don't think he's a must play. I think I would rather play Bubba at 7. Maybe Briscoe.
I was just going to ask, how do you feel about Briscoe? 5 positions back, $100 more.
Yeah, I don't hate it for $100.
I like the Reddick equipment better.
Yeah. I would rather move down to Priest.
Okay. But that's nice. That's
at 29th. Yeah, like I said, Priest feels low price. Priest, and he's ran pretty well this year. It's not great. He's not ran as well as Stenhouse, but starting 29th, 6,400. He feels like he should be closer to 7 to me. I don't know. But as we move to the 7s,
there you go.
I think it's a little bit more bunched here, and it's really interesting. You get McDowell starting 23rd. At 7,200, he's starting to get a little expensive. But, heck, we looked at his top 5s and top 10s, and maybe he's cheap. Again, front row runs real well at super speedways. McDowell has shown consistently that he can run up front. So he's the one that I've been talking myself through today as I was making all my picks.
So you're going Newman as well then?
I'm definitely doing Newman. Okay. I'm pumping Newman to the moon.
Those are the same team, right? Newman and McDowell?
No.
Oh, shoot.
McDowell and Alfredo. Newman is Buescher's teammate. Okay. So, at Roush Fenway. No, McDowell is somebody who is... I think he's going to be pretty high on because he won the 500.
Okay.
And so I think that's going to make people want to play him. And that scares me
away
a little bit.
But if it's truly a high variance event, you can't just say because he won the 500 he has a chance here. That makes no sense as a person that likes numbers. In a high variance event, you can't say the person that won the last event is likely to win this event. That's just not how high variance outcomes work.
That's how ownership.
But that's how hive mind works. Yeah, exactly. No, totally. That's
why I was saying that I think his ownership's going to be higher.
Gotcha.
But
not that he's a good play because of that. But
that's what scares me away from him.
So he may be a bad, exactly. Yeah.
Because
the field
I go
like
back and
more
forth.
Than his chances.
Because I do think. Purely, if you look at, like we said, if you look at his top 5s and his top 10s, starting 23rd, he's probably undervalued.
Yeah.
He's probably too cheap. He probably should be closer to 8, if not more.
And that's probably talking about median outcome, whereas in a high variance event, you aren't getting that median outcome as often. You're getting the outside distributions more often because it's a high variance event.
You're getting consistency.
Unless McDowell truly is that dude that's just the stone consistent nuts.
No, that's Ryan Newman, man.
Or Ryan Newman, stone consistent nuts. Top 10. Let's do it.
I think McDowell is a solid play. I probably won't have as much of him as I should. I honestly, the thing is, I'll probably have more Eric Jones.
Okay.
Again,
which is someone you've kind of been away from this season.
Onto Eric Jones, over him. Somebody that's interesting to me is Harrison Burton because he's making his Cup debut.
Okay.
But week to week, I have said don't play people that are making their Cup debut. But restricted plate races is different.
What car is he in?
He is in a Gaunt Brothers racing cart, which is like a
we would classify
Gibbs
them as
satellite
not good
team.
equipment.
It's a Gibbs satellite team, so I mean, it's going to be fine. I think he's cheap. He has a ton of position differential.
7,900 is
I
not
think he's
cheap.
a good driver. Starting 39th,
I mean, yeah, for as far back as he's starting it, maybe. But
I'm going to have quite a bit of them.
It's like when Cendric shows up. It's like, do I really want to play this guy that's just...
Yeah, but like, I think that... I think that it's a lot different at Talladega versus wherever Richmond last week, right? When Cendric ran. And Cendric was 8,500.
Yeah.
And there... Yeah,
But Cendric's in better equipment.
Cendric is in better equipment. But the thing about it is that Harrison Burton running because he runs for Gibbs and Xfinity.
Okay.
And with Gaunt Brothers being a satellite team of Gibbs,
he's gonna get a
good car.
Yeah.
Like they're not gonna give him a bad car. And not only that, but Gaunt Brothers has been good at Super Speedway. We talked about Suarez a minute ago. That's who he drove for last year.
Oh, really? Until he switched this year. Okay.
And so, we saw Ty Dillon who missed the Daytona 500 but ran really well in that car. Why did he end up missing it? I don't know.
Do you have COVID? I don't know.
Nah,
I assume chalk up to COVID this
No,
year.
he was there. He raced and everything. But
he just didn't ride in that car?
No, he just didn't make the race.
Oh.
But they've ran strong. Maybe he wrecked. I can't remember. I feel like he wrecked maybe. Anyways, but like those cars are good. It's not an example of like Harrison Burton's just like driving like a. I'm not gonna say anything mean about
driving
any other.
Acura.
Yeah, driving his Acura. That's
driving
perfect.
Keaton's Acura.
But I think he's definitely somebody who I'm probably gonna have more than I should.
Okay. I'm scared of new drivers.
I think that's fair, and I think it's way more important to be scared of new drivers at regular racetracks than it is necessarily here. But nonetheless, as we jump to, you'll see in the 8,000 and then the 10,000 range, the people that I pick are very few and far between.
Well, really, once you start getting up here, guys that are starting in the top 15 or whatever, you need these drivers to run. I mean, depending on their price, these guys you can probably get away with a top 10, but anywhere, once you start getting more expensive, I mean, and if you want to win a contest, you're going to need a top 5 finish or higher from these guys. So I wouldn't be rostering too many of these expensive drivers.
I just can't justify these three. I mean, I think are some that you probably do purely based on the fact that unless they wreck, I think they're going to finish in the top 10.
Well, and you're still getting hybrid value. You're still getting place differential value, and they're cheap enough that they're still getting just general value.
So, first of all, Eric Almirola is way too good a restrictor plate racer, and starting 14th to be $8,700.
Okay.
That's a misprice. I don't, no, he should be over 9.
Barring a wreck, he's a top 10
He
car.
should be over 9. Stithouse, honestly, probably is similar. Stithouse is scary because he is going to either wreck the field, which he's done multiple times.
Oh, he's responsible
including
for the wrecks.
himself,
Oh.
or he's going to finish top 5. So he's a little bit hit or miss. But starting 17th, he gives that position differential, and he can run up front. He's a guy that I like the idea of playing. And then Kurt Busch is somebody who has been consistent at super speedway racing, starting 15th, not super low but not high,
and he's not super expensive.
So
going back to Stenhouse wrecking people, when you're responsible for the, I was just gonna say, when you're responsible for a wreck, do other drivers
they hate you?
Get pissed? I mean, because I remember we saw that one Xfinity race where the guy got out of the car and was calling that one guy, I think he called him a dipshit.
Yeah. Well, and then did you not see 2 weeks later when Noah Gregson got into a fight with Daniel Hemrick?
No.
Oh yeah, you're Xfinity is where all the racing is.
So I mean, the other drivers are pissed when he does dumb stuff and causes a big
Okay.
Oh
yeah. And they know he's.
So we get on Twitter later and like say what a dumb POS Ricky is, or like what happens?
Yeah, basically.
Awesome! I can't wait.
Or they say it when they interview him after they get out of the infield care center.
Is Bowman a nice guy? He didn't ever call anyone a dumb piece of shit.
Oh, he definitely would, but he also is a nice guy.
He's ruined my opinion. I think he's a nice guy.
He's also a nice guy. You can be a nice guy and call someone
dumb.
Yeah. Those are mutually exclusive.
Let's keep it classy, Bowman. It's like Kyle Busch call people names.
Fool. The things that he calls them. I didn't give Kevin Harvick a bullet here because you don't like him.
Yeah, I don't like Harvick. He's not run well. I'm not a big fan of the Stewart Haas cars, except for Almirola.
I think, here's the thing. Kevin Harvick's going to win this year.
He's going to win a race this year. So
why wouldn't it be here?
Do you think Denny's going to win a race before or after Kevin? I'm taking Denny. That just feels like a safe bet, right?
That feels correct.
That feels like
what odds are you giving me? What odds are you giving me if I pick Harvick?
I'll give you 2-1 on Harvick.
Oh, I don't like that.
Based on lap les,
maybe like
Hamlin's
4-5.
Still a better bet.
But yeah, no, Harvick's just too good.
He is, yeah.
And I know the Stewart Haas cars aren't quite as good this year, but he's just too good. But
if we're on a track where cars don't matter as much, maybe this is his race, right?
Yeah.
But he hasn't had the super speedway history that we've seen from some of the other drivers.
No, he's bad luck on bad luck.
And at a certain point, when you've been driving 20 years, is it really bad luck?
It mostly is bad luck.
Okay.
But nonetheless, you look at, again, we talked about, the Hendrick cars, Larson and Elliott. I really like Chase this week, which means you should also probably play Kyle Larson. And honestly, you should play Kyle Larson more than Chase if you like Chase.
Larson's been in a fast car and he's starting 12th.
Yeah, and he's $900 cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I've talked about how I like Chase, and I think, he's a guy that could very well go to the front and lead a lot of laps. And, obviously he did lead some laps last race. I probably would play Kyle over Chase.
And Chase hasn't won a race this season either, right?
He is not. He's the only Hendrick car that doesn't have a win.
Yeah, that's so up here, I guess our only guy with a win is Larson then.
That is factually correct.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. A couple of other people we want to probably talk about that are...
We haven't talked about Truex yet.
That's 100% who I was about to talk about. He's starting third, and he's not $8,900.
Woo, that feels wrong.
And, yeah, I don't know what to do with him.
He's going to be popular at that price.
Yeah.
What's his super speedway history like?
Nah, not great.
Yeah, I didn't see him popping any of our earlier trucks.
But, the way the Gibbs cars run... Yeah, I don't know. $8,900 is really cheap for Martin Truex Jr. Yeah. And
where's Blaney starting this week?
He's starting top 10. Maybe
okay.
I can't remember. Fourth maybe? I don't know. And he's another guy that's an interesting look at. And
then I didn't see Kyle Busch on here.
Kyle Busch is somebody who I think was close to putting on. I want to say he's in the $9,000 range, and he's starting like 8th-ish.
And that's what this Chase Elliott starting 8th. But that's what this race is showing.
That's an 8th-ish.
Is that a lot of the guys that we like traditionally are going to be either 9 and X or 10X, and they're going to start in the top 14 or 15. We didn't have anything wild happen last week.
Kyle's starting 9th, so 8th-ish.
There you go, 8th-ish.
And he's 9,200. And so he's probably not a bad play. He fits very well in with Larson and Chase Elliott. I'd probably pick one of them.
Yeah.
Maybe two, right?
Get your hat, make your drawing, and roll with it.
And again, but I'm not going to have... I just don't see myself having more than one guy in this price range.
Yeah.
I just can't justify it. They're starting too low. Maybe because I'm going to pump Kevin Harvick because I think he's going to win a race this year. I will probably play more of him than I should. And I'll probably play a decent amount of Larson and Chase. So I may have some lineups that have Harvick, Larson, blah, 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 blah. Harvick, Chase, blah, 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 blah. But I just don't foresee myself. Part of me really wants to have some Denny lineups just because he's burnt me every week. But, like, I just have a hard time justifying playing Denny starting first. I just don't.
Is he really going to come out and run first the whole race?
I mean, no. I mean, statistically, it says he's not going to, right? Like, he's going to lead, like, on the best day, 40 to 50 laps. Yeah. And he's going to have, like, 10 fastest laps. And that's 12 points.
Unless he finishes top 5, that's not going to win.
Yeah. And even then, there's going to be other people who start, let's say, for example, Kevin Harvick, let's say he finished his second, that's the same amount of points as Denny just got for winning.
Yep.
Like, and leading a bunch.
Yep.
But again, I think Denny Hamlin probably has the best chance of any individual driver to win the race. So
does Vegas. Vegas agrees.
What do I know? I think this is really a week where you throw them all into a hat and you.
So tune in for our dart throwing show. We'll
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. That's all I wanted this to be. But it ended up being an hour and 6 minutes.
Which I said we were going to be a short show.
I said this was going to be a short show, and then I just talked. But I think that's the last slide.
It is.
I said
good luck.
But so I mean, make sure to if you're still watching, make sure to obviously like, but comment on how you're going to approach it. How you're going to. I think I'm gonna be honest. I may have a few lineups with some guys towards the front, but I'm going heavy on position differential. Yep. And I've preached that before, and it's failed me before. But I'm going to keep doing it. Yeah. I think it's the time. I think there's a lot of opportunity to play some of the people that I like towards the back that I think are going to come to the front. Because the thing is that there are going to be people that are starting in the back that are going to finish in the top 10.
What I was told was
and
the
you just
historic
have to guess it right.
Talladega motto was stack in the back.
Well,
so, yeah.
But as always, good luck. Thank you, everybody.
Thank y'all.
Bye.